Hey, Composite Gloves here. This is the 14th video in the Massive from the Ground Up tutorial series. Because I forgot to do the 14th, I skipped to 15. I got a little too excited. So we are going to look at today the insert effects. Now, the insert effects, if you go to the routing tab, you could put them in all sorts of different places in the routing tab. And where you put them in your signal chain will change how they affect your sound, or what sound they affect more accurately. So, insert one, you have two of them. They're both on by default. If we go to a new sound, they're both off by default. I am sorry, I was working in a preset or something. And you turn them on like so. So we're just going to turn one on. And you have options just the same, and they change what these knobs are as you select your options. And you could put modulation sources in the boxes below. So let's just go through what each of them do. So there's a simple delay, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It is just a simple delay. So if I turn the time way up and I turn it all the way affected, we have our insert, we have a delay. And if I turn it up, you hear it coming a little, just a little bit. That's a little through. And then the big down, just like you would expect a delay. But what's interesting about this is the effect is if you mess with the time while it's playing, it sends delay signal in. You know what? I don't know. But anyways, that's really interesting just for your knowledge. So that's what this symbol delay is. And you can change the time of your delay, which I believe sends out a new delay signal. Just a theory. You have your sample and hold. I already did a video on this, but I'm going to cover the basic concept real quick. So you can already hear it doing something. So let's turn it off and zoom in on this. Okay, so you see that massive. See the way digital audio works, and it's important, is it has a sample and hold. So if you have an audio interface, it's converting your audio. Like in my case, it's taking my voice right here and it's converting it into digital audio. So, for example, we have recorded this sound. Let's say we've recorded it. It takes little bits of samples of each moment of time. And in standard CD quality, it's 44.1 thousand times a second. And there's all these like mathematical reasons why it's that way. And each one of these moments in time has a value associated with it. It's called bit depth. And it basically tells the computer how loud it should be at that particular moment. So at this particular moment, it's that loud. At this particular moment, it's that loud. And as it plays it back at a rate, you get your original signal back. And the higher the rate, the higher the bit depth, the better your sound quality will be. And there's something else called quantization, but that's another topic. But what this sample and hold unit does is, it's called sample and hold because while this process is going on, right now, it's actually taking each part of my voice. It's doing this really fast, but it takes it and it has to measure that, like the voltage of like how loud, and as it takes that sample rate. And so it has to hold it. What this gives you power over is it allows you to control how long it's holding it through the pitch knob. So for example, if we turn it way down, you'll just hear clicks and pops. Our quality's gone way down, but if we go up, our signal becomes more recognizable because it's taking more samples. Until bang, you have your symbol or your signal. And you can notice that it's like a square wave. It's because of the way it doesn't have enough data to put in all the voltage. There's not enough data to tell it to go from here to here smooth and stuff like that. So that's what that is. And you'll notice all the way up, it still takes away some. So you get a sort of a crisper sound. And if you do two of them and you mess with the pitch on this guy, it starts getting crazy because you're messing with the way, because there's this whole thing about time stretching that I'm not going to go into, but trust me, you could have a lot of fun with this. I have a preset in my pack call of bass wobbles called The Bug, and it's built around the idea of the pitch and sample and hold. And I'm not sure if I had a second sample and hold or not. So that's what sample and hold does. Bit crusher, now that you know what... Now you know what it's doing. This just messes with the bit depth. This does not mess with the sample rate. So the sample rate is the same, but it just reduces the bit depth. So as you can see, our dynamic volume is a lot more up, down, up, down. And in older bit systems like 16-bit is like standard for CD right now. But if you go down to like a 4-bit system, that's why video games had sounds the way they sounded, was because they only had 4 bits to work with. So their volume range was very limited. Okay, so that's what the bit crusher does. And again, dry, wet. Frequency shifter, it just shifts your frequency. Should be noted that we started with a saw wave. If we go to a sine wave, that's a square wave. It literally just changes the pitch. Almost like a second pitch knob. It does it a different method, but for the most part, that's what it does. You have a high pass, low pass. So there's your high pass, which we talked about in the filters already, and your low pass. And you might be wondering, why are these down here? Well, one reason is, well, you'll notice these don't have resonance, and the ones up here have resonance. And the main reason is these are just to cover so that you don't have to spend your 2 filters on a high pass and a low pass. You could just use these, and bang, you now have 2 in 1. And so you can use these for other things now. So that's what that's for. If we go down to the sine shaper, let's turn this all the way off. There's our sine wave. And oh, you got to turn the dry wet on. Sort of reminds you of phase, huh? The way phase works. Phase modulation. Kind of, sort of. Not, obviously not the same. But this does it a different method. It's overdriving the signal. And so you get a whole bunch of additional harmonics. It's wave shaping. And so that's what that is. And then if you go, so that's the sine shaper. This uses a sine wave as the signal to distort it by. This one, I believe, uses an S shape. So you see it turns it into a square wave as opposed to a sine wave. And that's why the two are different. They distort them into that shape. And if you have a sine wave already being distorted into a sine wave, it doesn't do all that much. But if you have like a crazy thing, it behaves way differently. That's you can see the square show up. If we zoom way in, you can sort of see the influence of the sine wave as it's in there. And so that's what that is. It's sort of just shoving it into that shape, or at least trying to. And it uses various algorithms. And then finally, you have the hard clipper, which does this. Let's turn this all the way off. So, let's go to a waveform that's less scary. Okay. There you have it. It makes it clip. Basically, it sends the voltage all the way to the tippy top. And my dog really wants to go out because someone just came home. Let's go to a more complicated waveform real quick. This is a square wave. It's being already distorted. But you can see it does very little to a square wave because the square wave's already being maxed out, so it has nothing to clip and send all the way to the top value. If that made sense. Okay, let's go back to sine wave real quick. Okay. You have all this value that's not at the maximum and minimum. Well, that solves it. Sends it to the maximum and the minimum, effectively creating a square wave out of whatever you want. It's just square waves. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways you could do this. And my dog's barking and ruining my tutorial. Just kidding. You might really like the dog sound. I don't know. So that's it. Subscribe if you enjoy these videos, and have a blessed day.